So, good afternoon. Richard Bevan, Chief Executive of the League Managers Association. Craig Marsh, University of Lincoln.
Very nice to meet you.
Great to meet you, and thank you so much for giving some of your time up with us today. So the purpose of this 20 minutes or so is really just to explore your insights into a couple of themes that we're developing for this series. The millennial generation that we hear so much about. Just your perspective on whether you really do see something different going on with this generation as they arrive into the world of work or indeed the world of sport. And what that means for leadership. Is that changing leadership? Are there some fundamentals of leadership that stay the same? So that's really the theme. We'll spend 20 minutes or so chatting about that, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So perhaps we could start with the first theme, Richard, and perhaps just if you could give your perspective on what you're seeing, both from your managers, I guess, but also perhaps from the players. In terms of this generation that we're calling the millennials, whether you're seeing anything that's going on there that's interesting or different.
As you say, I'm the Chief Executive of the League Managers Association. I'm also Chairman of the Caribbean Premier League Cricket. So across sport and my experiences in sport, you tend to see the situations exaggerated because of short-termism or because of the volatility of the nature of the job. So you do see there'll be a number of answers to your question, but I do see a significant changing working environment for the different generations in sport, more so than any year in my 30 years of working in sport.
Is that right?
And I think that's because leaders have realized that in order to generate success and to motivate the up-and-coming generations of sport, as Sir Alex Ferguson put it, we have moved from a demanding culture to a convincing culture. So, put another way, leadership is learning. Mm-hmm. It's about being a teacher. And I think the younger generation are looking for their jobs to be more relevant. They're looking to take on more responsibility. They want a strong working culture to be bedded into. And I'm always pretty shocked by being told in industry that the average time somebody spends in their job between 20 and 30 tends to be about 1.5 years. Yeah. In sport, it's a lot longer. Right. So my team, it's in excess of 5 years in that age group. And I think that's because of their drive and passion to work in sport. So I think I'm very lucky working with a team of people that work and serve and develop services for coaches and managers and sports players, that we work in an industry which is very transparent at times. And so you do get this feeling that the younger generation, particularly in sport where analytics, tactics, psychology, physiology, biomechanics, medicine, nutrition are all becoming far greater importance to the success of a team and the success of a culture within a club.
So I think there are several insights that you've just shared there, Richard. And coming back to what you were saying about the nature of this generation and their relationship to work, and over those 30 years, you're seeing that changing in terms of. So that are they accepting more responsibility than you've seen before? They're more passionate and driven about their work, and perhaps more. Technology savvy, is that right as well? Yes. Are you seeing that? Is that something else? Because you referred to some of the effects of technology on the business
provides the younger generation, that generation, with knowledge. The knowledge then, through education, through work experience, we do a lot of domestic and overseas performance visits, and they're seeing continually performing teams. So they themselves, our team, are striving to take on more responsibility, and at the same time being nervous at getting it wrong. And so therefore in sport you tend to see the development of that generation working in teams, more so I think than you do in business and other parts of society.
And you think that's part talking about teams in sport is obviously not a surprising thing, but so you think that's part of the value system that they have, that they work in teams more than they do as individuals. Is that what
yes? I think the people that accelerate their careers the quickest in that generation are those that realise that success and failure are very rarely too far apart. And to avoid failure, I mustn't do it on my own. I want to do it on my own, but I mustn't do it on my own. So therefore, I'm going to take the experience of, a lot of people call them mentors or coaches. And in sport, there are plenty of people that are willing to contribute. So we have professors, we've got 5 medical, we have a leadership board, we have a medical board, we've got businesses, we've got sports, we've got people that our team can access. Yeah. Also, we have an institute, which is to us the business school of coaches. We put on 36 masterclasses, 709 coaches are currently going through the programs, and all of our team must attend a certain number of those masterclasses. That then brings greater awareness to diversity issues, to work performance, to education. So I feel that the people that I work with have got a far greater appetite than I think the previous generations.
And an appetite for that work, for anything particular? I mean, is that, when you say appetite, what would their appetite be for?
Appetite for success,
yeah.
Appetite for career development. They want to see a clear pathway. Yeah. They want to be guided. Appraisals came in a few years back, and actually most people, I think, who give appraisals have not been trained to give appraisals.
That's true.
But I think the millennial generation have actually changed appraisals to being, instead of once a year, twice a year, stick it in the drawer and hope everyone is happy with it, it becomes their appraisal. And at the end of each month, there is a team meeting with the people I work with that they sit down and talk through. So effectively, the appraisal never really takes place on an annual basis. It's a monthly basis.
Is that right? And is it seen more of a collective event rather than individual
It's
event?
their event.
It is their event.
It's their event. It's their document. It's their CV.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really...
And they feel ownership over that, presumably. So
absolutely. And in fact, we're going to be doing video CV shortly. Yeah. So people can actually... I was at a meeting not long ago where one of our team, who's got a double first in maths, probably more intelligence than the rest of our team put together, but what was very clear is that the realization from the younger generation, as opposed to recent generations in the 70s, 60s and 50s and 40s, is that there's an opportunity that everybody can lead. So I pick the subject matter, the event, the project that I can lead on. Yeah. And I will lead on that. And when I'm not leading, I will support the leaders. As opposed to some hierarchical structure that is a position, and leadership is not a position.
So it's less about your title as a leader and more about the particular task that requires me to lead.
Absolutely, and leadership is about action, it's about learning, it's not a position. And I think they grasp that very quickly. Is that right?
And millennials you're seeing them really understanding that and subscribing to that as an idea of leadership.
Yes, and they challenge. They are extremely instinctive in their thought pattern. All you need to do is to make sure that as they make instinctive decisions for the development of the services that we offer our members, or the business aspect of what we deliver with our 40 business partners, 20 PLCs, is that they get guidance and leadership from the top and mentor them through the project that they're working on. Okay. That's why in our teams we have different age groups, different generations working on different projects. Yep. We're also in sport very nervous of getting it wrong. Yeah. And with social media,
because the consequences are very public,
significant.
Yeah. So that part that you were talking about, this mentoring relationship with more senior leaders, I'll come back to. For me, I would be interested in your perspective as to why you think that is with this generation, that they seem to have change their understanding of what leadership is. And I'm much prepared, and I use the word ownership, I know, but it seemed to characterise what you're talking about, to be owning a task in the sense that I am leading that task in a particular situation. I'm very comfortable with that, and I'm owning my own appraisal and my own performance development. Is there something that you could point to that says why this is happening with this generation in particular?
I can only speak from the generation and from the people I work with, and that is that's key as well. I don't say that I'm the chief executive of the League Managers Association. When I go to meetings, I actually say I work for the LMA and all of our teams. So we don't really have titles as such. But to answer your question, I think it's the world we live in sport.
Yeah.
So in football, which is the prime business that we work in, the Premier League goes to 207 countries, 267 billion homes, 70 different countries are represented in teams. We're speaking all the time with the equivalent bodies in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And I think that leads to more knowledge, more confidence, and challenging that actually what we've done in England hasn't been necessarily the right way of doing it. Yeah. And there are several ways to work.
Yeah.
I also think that brings in the generation wanting more flexibility in the way that they deliver projects.
Yeah.
They want to visit senior clients. One of my team said to me the other day, working in a small organisation, I think the taxman describes a small organisation as a company with under 30 employees, which is us with 75 professionals delivering a service, is that in a small organisation, which I would encourage people to work in, you get thrown into the deep end much quicker.
Yeah, you do.
One of my team met with the chief executive of BP recently. We're delivering their BP are our biggest partners in Castrol, who actually are changing mindsets of their employees. They're looking at, they employ 88,000 people around the world. They have some great ideas, and we're working with them on a number of leadership projects. But my member of the team is 22, said, where would I, in a normal working environment, be able to run a working project and speak with somebody so senior in a company of that standing?
Yeah.
And in sport as well, many of the organizations have to go through management companies and agencies. So in an association like the LMA, perhaps my experience is slightly blinded by the passion and the energy that the team have to work in the industry they've selected
for their task. Right.
And I think, as I say, if you work in sport, indeed any industry where the passion is, the interest is so high, then you're very lucky.
Indeed, very much so. You reminded me of something that one of our interviewees said, one of our younger interviewees, who said that actually this generation are very used to being performance measured through social media, because actually social media is a lot about being shown to achieve and being shown to be performing and being shown to measure that through likes and through all the recognition you get. And actually that he works with that in a sense, and that's part of who they are actually almost. And it actually reminded me a little bit of that when you were saying they kind of almost hold themselves to account and they lead their own particular task and their own performance. Is that something that you would subscribe to, or do you think that's one of the things that's going on with this generation?
I'm not that sure that that's the case, but I think what they do is they check themselves.
Yeah.
They want appraisals, they want recognition, and they want to be challenged, and they want the next project and the next target. And I think what social media enables them to do is to take people's opinion, to look at other examples. Yeah. The world is a very small place that we live in now.
Yeah, very much so. So coming back to the point that you made about leadership, and we were talking before about the multi-generational leaders that you have in your association, and you were talking about the relationship of the mentor with the young people. So could you just say a bit more about how that, why you set things up in that way and how that works? You talk about the group support between leaders, different generations of leaders, what the challenge is for the older generation of leaders and how they're responding to some of these changes.
By the very nature of football management, it's a very volatile, competitive, intense, serious business. The average length of time is just over a year in your job. So you've got to really focus. You've got to understand what my short-term wins are going to be. And so you need to continually look at people who've been there and done it to see what examples and how not to reinvent the wheel. So we have some amazing senior managers that pass down their views to the younger managers and the younger coaches. And I think that recruitment is the number one topic. If I get my recruitment right, I've got a very high chance of success. Instinctive recruitment in sport is a very hot topic. So listening to Sir Alex Ferguson's and the Howard Wilkinson's give lectures is very intriguing to so many coaches who are on the way to becoming a manager becoming a leader.
That's right. How so? How intriguing? How is that intriguing?
Those managers that have successfully built teams on a regular basis are the managers that survive long enough for a long-time career. The longevity then brings respect, which then brings the bigger jobs. In Alex's case, one of his key messages is that society, as well as sport, is moving from a demanding to a convincing culture. The players have come from all over the world. It's a different generation, so managing those players is more about mentoring than being the boss, getting them to come up with the answers.
Yep.
Then you have the likes of Gerard Houllier, who used to be a school teacher, and in fact many of the successful managers haven't been successful players, but they have been successful teachers. Gerard Houlier's number one message is to have clear vision, to ensure that you understand your targets, the backroom team, where you're going, managing expectations, making sure that the board, the fans, the media are all on your side.
Yeah.
And making sure that your team that you're working with helps you deliver. So a clear vision would be his key goal.
So not much about football then?
No, and actually the LMA Institute of Leadership and High Performance are very